Thank you. Welcome. I'm Francine Prose, president of Pan American Center. What you've been watching is footage from Prisoners in Freedom City, a video that the AIDS activist and blogger Hu Jia and his wife Zheng Jinyan shot in 2006, documenting the banal ordeal of his house arrest in Beijing. It is remarkable for two reasons. First, because it so vividly conveys the level of surveillance and intimidation outspoken critics of the Chinese government endure. And second, because the life depicted in the film is so much better than the one Hu and Zheng are living now. Hu Jia was arrested at his home this past December on suspicion of inciting subversion of state power, and in April he was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. His arrest came shortly after he published an open letter entitled "The Real China and the Olympics," and testified before the European Parliament via webcam on human rights in China. He is one of 8 writers, journalists, and bloggers jailed since we launched the We Are Ready for Freedom of Expression campaign in December. The campaign is a joint effort of Pan American Center, PEN Canada, and the Independent Chinese PEN Center, ICPC. ICPC is a remarkable PEN Center composed of 200 leading dissident writers, half inside and half outside China. As you'll hear tonight, ICPC and its members have paid a heavy price for their activism. Chinese authorities prevented ICPC from holding its annual dinner in Beijing. Its officers and members are the target of constant surveillance and harassment, and 6 of its members are currently in prison. It is an honor for us to work alongside them and support their courageous efforts to protect and expand the freedom to write in China, and it is also our great honor to have 2 of their members with us this evening. Last month, PEN protested internet censorship at Olympic press centers, and also last month, ICPC member Du Daobin was rearrested and sent back to prison. He was seized at the Healthcare Reform Office where he works as a clerk. Later, police officers searched his home and confiscated computers and written materials, including letters some individuals had written to Du's family during his detention more than 4 years ago. Du's arrest follows the news that formal charges have also been pressed against human rights activist and writer Huang Kui. Huang, the director of the Tianwang Human Rights Center, was detained on June 10, 2008. On July 18th, when his family arrived at the Chengdu Public Security Bureau's subdivision looking for information about his situation, they discovered that he was being formally arrested for illegal possession of state secrets. He is being held incommunicado at the Chengdu City Detention Center, where he's being denied legal counsel on the grounds that his case involves state secrets. Although we did not achieve our goal of winning the release of the 45 writers, journalists, and bloggers now in prison before the Olympics, we will not cease or ease our efforts. One of the things that distinguishes PEN is that it follows individual cases and supports individual writers to and through the day of their release. This work includes not only our continuing efforts on behalf of our colleagues in China and other countries, but also our campaign for core freedom to end human rights abuses and confront threats to freedom of expression in the United States. Indeed, we know the best thing we can do to support ICPC and our colleagues around the world is to confront the abuses in our own country. Pan American Center has joined the ACLU and Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and other leading international human rights organizations, journalists, and attorneys in filing a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the newly enacted FISA Amendments Act, a law that grants the administration the power to carry out and expand the illegal eavesdropping activities it has engaged in secretly since 2001. The purpose of this evening's program is to make sure, first, that the world does not forget, in all the Olympic fever, that there are 45 of our colleagues in Chinese prisons, and second, to let these colleagues and their families know that they are not forgotten and will not be forgotten when the Olympics are over. To that end, we will be giving out packets of postcards addressed to 10 of the writers in prison. Please take them home, fill them out, and send them off. You can also support PEN's efforts by becoming associate members and by donating to PEN. We will have buckets at the door on the way out to accept donations to support PEN's work. I'd like to say a little something about the buckets. Those of you who've been watching television or reading the newspaper or anything in the last few weeks have noticed that you would think that there was no other country in the world besides China, and you would think that everyone who lived in China had recently returned from abroad to take advantage of the booming economy to start up a new telecommunications company. The reason for all this attention, I need hardly tell you, is not out of appreciation for China's great hospitality in hosting the Olympics, but because it's occurred to governments and business people all around the world that China is, of course, a market that promises billions and billions of dollars in a market for consumer goods and so forth. So, so that's why it's extremely important and extremely difficult, Penn's efforts, because for fear of alienating that market, for fear of alienating the government behind that market, the mainstream media and governments and so forth have been extremely reluctant to speak out on behalf of human rights victims in China and the writers in particular. So, so what I want to tell you is, of course, on the one hand, you have these billions of dollars, and on the other hand, you have our little bucket. So, so I'd like to urge you to do whatever you can to bring those closer together. Finally, I'd like to thank the people who made the evening possible: Larry Seams, Carol Llewellyn, Nick Bird, Elizabeth Weinstein, Mike Roberts, who are all part of the incredibly hardworking, inspired, resourceful, heroic Penn staff. Also, the co-sponsors of the event, Penn Canada, especially Marion Botsford Fraser, who's here with us tonight, the New School, Robert Polito, and the Independent Chinese Penn Center. Welcome. Thank you.